Hello, my name is Spirit River. I'm president for the Representation Executive Council for the Students Association of Mount Royal University.
Hi, and I'm Joseph Nguyen. I am the Vice President Student Affairs of SAMRU's Rec team as well. And this is Tea and Talk with Rec. This is where we update you on how your student representatives are working to advocate on your behalf to Mount Royal University and to all three levels of government.
Today, we're going to be talking about some key issue areas that we've been advocating for on behalf of students.
Today, we'll be talking about MRU students are back online. What is SAMRU doing to advocate for students' success for this semester?
Also, we're going to be talking about the UPass system. We got a new app for the fall semester. And what does UPass advocacy look like going forward?
Also, additionally, everyone's favorite topic, tuition increases. We'll update you about that.
As well as Blackboard. That's something that all students use, and it's going to be changing soon. And your SAMRU president, myself, is leading the student voice on this major change.
And lastly, we'll have a few other topics to go over, such as equity, diversity, and inclusion advocacy, and other things we've been up to as your representatives. But for now, let's jump into our first topic, COVID.
So COVID, that's a really big topic. A lot of students are, wondering about what their future is going to be looking like here in the next couple of months. Especially after January 22nd. I don't know. How are you feeling right now about COVID, Joseph?
Honestly, I feel the same as any other student feels. I hate the inconsistency. I hate the constant transitions from online, offline, online, offline. And I just wish it was predictable, because there's lots of uncertainty that a lot of us feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think something worth, we have some notes here for MRA students to really know what we've been up to around advocacy on this. And we've definitely been concerned. We've been in constant communication with the administration on this issue. Right up until leading up to Christmas, we were getting text messages from the MRU admin about some of the things that they were, thinking of doing and so forth. And so I just got back from vacation after the Monday the 10th of January. And so as soon as we got back, we started talking a little bit about COVID advocacy and what our COVID advocacy plan is. And I think one thing when we sat down, Joseph, was that our advocacy plan should be based on students getting answers and consistency.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. Lots of students have been saying that, I just want to know. And I've heard that some positive feedback that, how we are having an announcement, I think January 24th. Is that right, Spirit?
I think so, yeah. Or around that time.
Around that time, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Students have been telling me that they really appreciate that there's a solidified, clear date of when they'll know whether it will be online or in person. It just gives more certainty to the obviously uncertain situation, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think some important things to mention is that SAMRU's position for the last year has been that in-person course delivery is preferred method of receiving their education, student education. And this is evidence-based in the sense that SAMRU's conducted surveys, MRU has conducted surveys, and we've even had surveys from our different lobby groups outside of Mount Royal, so students across Canada as well. And I just think when I think about Omicron and how it's made balancing what students want, which isn't in person, versus what is safe, it just made that balance really challenging. And I think one thing that we had to really sit down as the SAMRU rec team was just to say that, we aren't epidemiologists. We're not really that credible body to decide what is safe, especially with the amount of variables that Omicron has. Yeah, a lot of unknowns with this particular variant.
Yeah, I think something to kind of as a disclaimer is that our position, even though it's evidence-based, you said, with all these surveys and whatnot, and even though our position is in person, it's majority, right? It's not like a consensus where 100% of MRU students want to be in person. What does that mean? It means that, we can't win them all. We can't please them all, right? There's going to be people who prefer online. There's going to be people who can't do in person. There's lots of different unique situations out there. And unfortunately with this pandemic, like it really is impossible to please everyone with this pandemic inside and outside of MRU.
I think that's a challenge of, student leadership or any kind of representative role, is that you can't, you have to really think about, what does the evidence say? What are my values as an individual? And what is, the best decision for the majority of my constituents, right? And so, but I think the issue, though, again, coming down to it, is that we're just not the people to make that decision. One thing that we did pressure MRU admin on was that, please, any safe way to have in person, please prioritize that. And although that still is our position, it's important that we don't pressure in person if it's not the right thing to do. And so I think one thing that we're really focusing on is that MRU really needs to show that leadership and make an appropriate decision and announce that decision as soon as possible. Yeah, I don't know. That's how we're kind of feeling about this right now, anyways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, we decided to not focus on we should be in person, we should be online, and focus more on what to do after that decision is made, right? So let's say, for example, we go in person. What safety precautions are being in place, and how can we make sure that they're being applied and enforced, right? And let's say we go online, what services and how can we best support students, right? That would be our advocacy route. So it's not really, we're focusing on online or in person. We're just focusing on, I guess, the aftermath, right? The aftermath of.
I think the way that I kind of look at it too is that we feel that students need to know what to expect in the winter semester. So kind of going off of what you're saying, having services available to students, I think is really important for students to know what to expect, that, they can come to campus if they're fully vaccinated. But I also think that consistency piece is also really important. So one part of our advocacy plan is that if we go in person and have to switch online, then we should probably just remain online. And that's if the administration makes that decision around January 21st. The other thing here is that if we decide to go online after January 24th, then we should just stay online and have that consistency, because we don't know if we go online after January 24th, and then they're like, around reading break, we'll come back in person, but then we have to go back online by finals. Like, that's just way too much flip-flopping and creates a lot of inconsistency, and I think would really ultimately harm the student experience and ultimately the success of students in their academics.
For sure, yeah. I know some people who back in March 2020, or when the first lockdown hit, people moved back home, including myself, right? We moved back home, whether it was Banff or BC or Ontario, wherever it was. And then we did school online from there. And I think like that's just one, I guess I would call one unique aspect of like how important consistency is. For example,
it's important to be able to plan. Yeah.
Like, and people, including students, students are people too. We need to plan our lives. Like we like, people need to know what's going to happen in a month, what's going to happen in 2 months. Like they need to plan whether it's their flights or even their car insurance, if they need to cancel it. Where they live is a huge thing, right? Like whether they live close to school or not, or whether they live at home. There's so many factors. And if we talked about it, we could be talking about it for another hour, Spirit, but about all these different factors that play into why consistency is so important for students.
And to have answers as soon as possible. We believe that students shouldn't be worrying about course delivery along with many other competing priorities that they have to deal with as students. But I think regardless of whether the MRU admin team decides to be in person or online, we will advocate to Emory to effectively communicate with students surrounding COVID updates. And this means having updates early, often, and using multiple pathways to communicate. So not just emails and so forth.
Oh, for
So
sure.
that's our COVID. Yeah, that's our COVID advocacy update for you here today.
Yeah. Let's move on to the second section, UPass.
So this next section that we're going to be talking about is the UPass system. Everybody, pays into the UPass. It's a really important program. In terms of who advocates for that here at SAMRU, that's myself and VP External Rachel Timmermans. Because it is, our current UPass program is a contract between MRU and Calgary Transit. It is a student subsidizing student program, meaning that students all pay the fee, and those students who don't use the UPass are essentially helping to subsidize their peers and so forth. So it's a really important program. In the past, when there's been referendums, students have voted to keep the UPass program in place. And yeah, so we have a lot of important advocacy updates to talk about. I don't know, Joseph, do you use the transit system a lot?
I do. It's actually my main mode of transportation. Unfortunately, since we're part-time students, Spirit, we don't have access to the UPass since we're only taking one course. But when I was a full-time student, man, I abused it. I used the heck out of it. Like every day, on the weekends, on the weekdays, like 2-3 times, maybe 4 times, just so many times. And I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah. That's funny that you said, because we've been in these roles when the UPass app came out. It's with the MyFare app. And so it's kind of interesting because SAMRU, particularly under my leadership in my last term, in partnership with our colleagues at the Calgary Student Alliance, we advocated for the new UPass app and as well as continued student consultation regarding the UPass program. So it's just funny that I've advocated for it. Me and Rachel have advocated for it. I've been in conversations with Calgary Transit and with the university. And I just realized now, I haven't even been able to use it. But I haven't got any complaints from students about it. So I'm guessing that it's probably a pretty good success. And I know that I've lost my my student card a few times. And so I had to go and pay for a whole new UPass sticker. So it's nice that we just have this app now that can be on our phones. And I think the other important thing too is a reminder is that if you don't want it on your phone or you don't have a phone, you can still go and get the sticker from
I love that option.
But I guess I did want to talk a little bit about the UPass app. It is both a good thing and a worrisome thing in terms of student advocacy. There's a growing concern that the UPass may rise in costs for MRE students in the future now that Calgary Transit can get more accurate ridership data from the app. And so, it worries us. It's a good thing that we have the app, but at the same time, our current contract, they negotiate the ridership percentage, but with the app, they'll have a better indication of what the actual ridership is. So if it's higher than what we negotiated, then that means the cost of the UPass will increase. Or if it's lower, hopefully we can negotiate for a lower price. So we just really don't know until we get that ridership data, and we should be getting that pretty soon here, actually. But SAMRU, through the Calgary Student Alliance, is advocating to potentially change the current program or the current contract that we have from a student subsidizing student program to a city subsidizing student program and maintain or even decrease the current UPass fee for students. So I think that would be really, really good because with the ridership data and the app, it really creates, with COVID, we're talking about how uncertainty and lack of consistency can increase a lot of anxiety for our students. So being able to have consistency in the UPass the UPass cost, I think would go far at preventing a lot of anxiety with MRU students.
And wait, just a quick question. Cities subsidizing student program, that's the city would be subsidizing for us, I assume?
Yeah, like we've been talking. Our wonderful Vice President External Rachel Timmermans has been meeting with the city to talk a little bit about that. So yeah, right now the Calgary Transit wants to have revenue neutrality. Like they want to say like this is how much MRU uses transit. We want to have the exact amount of money returned to us. Um, Whereas, so in that sense, it's students subsidizing their peers, right? Those students that don't use it are still paying the fee so that those that do use it have a lower fee for the UPass. If we can switch to a city subsidizing model, it would, in a sense, they wouldn't be about trying to reach revenue neutrality. It would be more about trying to look at a citywide program for all students to decrease the cost of it. And I think it will be particularly important to do so. And I think it's actually really relevant to do that now, given that in November, the city, under Mayor Gondek, declared a climate emergency in the city. So more students utilizing transit is, I think, a great means of addressing climate change.
Perfect. Thank you. And that about wraps up our topic. Next topic is tuition increases.
So yeah, tuition increases. It's, this has been like the bane of my existence as soon as I became president back in 2020. Such a different world since then. And I think my perspective on tuition increases really changed when I first came in. I think, a lot of students are like, we need a leader that can fight the tuition increases and put a stop to them. But once you're actually in these roles and you've learned the complexity of, the cause and effect of everything and how everything's tied together, like, faculty need salaries, and we need to continue to have quality student supports. And at the same time, tuition isn't paying for all of it. It's really the Campus Alberta grant that's provided by the government of Alberta. And so with the government of Alberta essentially decreasing their funding to post-secondary institutions, that creates a whole chain of effects on everything else in terms of how many more faculty we can hire, and retention of staff and quality of supports for students. And so, when one thing gives, the other also has to take. So, in that sense, it's tuition increases. But yeah, it's a complex topic, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like we can play, supreme dictator where we just like, oh, we deem that, tuition won't be increased. There's like a whole voting process, right, Spirit?
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I've talked to a few students as well who say that, like, oh, I get it, you're a student leader, you have no real power. And that kind of makes me mad because it's like I'm really proud of the role that we're in, and we actually do have a lot of power. Students have a lot of power through their student association, through who they elect into these roles. Just recently, regarding tuition increases, at the MRU Board of Governors meeting, myself and Joseph voted against the tuition increases. But unfortunately, the board ultimately approved those tuition increases, and tuition once again raised by 7% average across all programs.
Yeah, and this board, it's not just students on this board. It's not just staff. It's students, staff, faculty, even like high-level public community members. Right, there are like CEOs on this, of big companies on this board too.
Yeah. Who are then those public members are appointed by the government as well. So it's really important to note that. But we were able to get one faculty member to vote against the motion, which I think was a really big success. I mean, it's one vote, and ultimately the tuition increase did happen. But at the same time, it's still good to see that faculty I really truly do believe that faculty, care about students, and they care about the fact that we're paying more, and they don't like that. And I've talked to a lot of faculty who shared that. Um, so yeah, it's a challenging area, but we haven't just voting against isn't the only thing we've been doing in terms of this advocacy. SAMRU has been really good at ensuring that there's other types of supports available for students. So one thing that's really important is that for the last couple of years, we've had that $1 million bursary for students. For I think it's on a kind of rolling basis or a scaled basis in terms of like those students who really need financial help with their tuition, that they can apply for that bursary, or that they automatically qualify for it when they register for scholarships and register for their program.
Yeah, and students told Rachel and I that they're generally okay with the increases, but they want to see a reflection in improved student services on campus. And Rachel, Yasmin, and I, we have been in regular conversation with the MRU admin regarding improved services to MRU. Services include international education, access and inclusion services, career services, health services and counseling. Fun fact, they're hiring more counselors, student learning services, and academic advising. These services, you can expect them to have improved in their quality as our tuition is being increased.
Awesome, that's incredible. Perfect. Okay, well, let's move on to the other topics that we have here, like Blackboard and other things like that. So this next topic around Blackboard, I think is just also another really important topic for students, because it's not, unlike the $1 million bursary we were talking about, or maybe even some of the services like UPass or counseling, not every student is going to use those services, right? But Blackboard is literally something that every single student is going to have to use, right? So there's been a lot of developments around the Blackboard system. MRU is changing Blackboard to another learning management system. We call it LMS here in the internal advocacy world. And SAMRU is leading the student voice on this major change. I'm part of the Learning Management Steering Committee, and so we're looking at a variety of different products from different companies and organizations to see what may replace Blackboard, or we might just go with a newer version of Blackboard. The current Blackboard that we have is called Blackboard Classic, and so it's such an old program that Blackboard is going to stop supporting this version, I believe, fairly soon. So we're kind of being forced to switch programs, but at the same time, I think it's probably a good idea, because it is pretty rusty, and I think it might be nice to try something that's a little bit more up to date, maybe more interactive and a little bit more helpful in organizing students and helping with their success.
And Spirit, do we know when this change do you have an idea of when this change will be implemented?
We have a few dates. We have products that have, we've been looking through products right now, and we're kind of just getting into the evaluation stage of those products. So really more details are to come. One thing though, I've had to sign some confidentiality agreements around some of the work with the LMS system. So, but one thing that I've been pressing pretty hard is that MRU needs to communicate this effectively and loudly to the campus community, so that, again, consistency. It's really important that students know that. For me, I've been a student for so long, and Blackboard has just been like in my kind of in my bookmarks on my browser. We need to know that you're going to have to change that tab there pretty soon. But more information will be sent to you folks through email or through the website and so forth. So more stuff is to come. But other than that, that is all the topics that we really have. There's other things. Those are kind of just the highlights we want to touch on. there are many other topics that we are and advocacy areas that we're engaging in around COVID, around equity, diversity, inclusion, and so forth. So it's been a really busy year. But this is all the time that we have for today's episode. We hope you found value in our podcast, and we look forward to updating you on how your SAMRU Rec team is working and representing you to help you succeed.
Yep. Until next episode, folks, this was Spirit Rivers, Fretful, and myself, Joseph Nguyen, and we'll see you next time.